and the sun is just ducking below. Is that an island? I think that's an island. I'm not positive. Anyway, the sun is setting. I am in Mwanza, Tanzania, on the edge of Lake Victoria. I'm getting my very first look at Lake Victoria, Africa's largest lake, and I'm getting a lovely sunset to boot. This is probably one of the nicest sunsets I've seen during my time in Africa, and it's a great way for me to get started with my brief exploration of Lake Victoria and the Lake Victoria region, which I'm going to start talking to you about in just a moment. Alright, I am back. I snapped away, got some nice sunset photos, which I'll try to crop in. There's still a very beautiful sky right behind me with these different shades of pink and orange and yellow, but you can't really see just because of the lighting and the camera angle. Anyway, both Mwanza as a city and Lake Victoria as a lake and a region are very much overlooked, at least by tourists who are exploring Tanzania. Probably overlooked by more than just tourists, but anyway, everyone knows about Mount Kilimanjaro and the Serengeti and the other safari options and Zanzibar. And there's Dar es Salaam, which is large, but tourists don't like it so much. But off in the northwest corner of the country is the city of Mwanza and Lake Victoria. And as I mentioned in the start, this is Africa's largest lake, and there are some large lakes in Africa. This is one of the Great Lakes of Africa. So this is a very prominent body of water. Not only is it the largest lake in Africa, it is also, or at least it was, Africa's largest inland fishery. So Lake Victoria is famous and also controversial because of fishing, at least over the past half century or maybe more. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding the insertion of some predator fish, particularly something called the Nile perch. And actually, for that matter, I might as well mention, geographically speaking, Lake Victoria actually lets out into the Nile River. Lake Victoria spreads over a few countries in the region. Tanzania occupies almost 50%. I believe 49% of the lake is in Tanzania, and then a large chunk, like 45%, something like that's in Uganda, and there's a smaller chunk in Kenya, and I believe Burundi and Rwanda are also in the basin, but I'm not positive of that. Anyway, from Uganda, Lake Victoria lets out into the Nile River. So it's a very important lake geographically and also economically. So this is a huge fishing location, or at least it was. And I should mention that there's actually a fairly known fish market right behind me. It's called the Mwaloni Fish Market, and that plays a certain role in the controversy as well. So this Nile perch, which is a huge fish, I think it can be larger than humans, like more than 2 meters tall, more than 6 feet tall, and weighing, I don't know how much, but I've seen them there, or at least seen photos of them. They're huge. And I don't know to what extent the eradication of certain species in the lake, and that's another thing that was significant about the lake. It has this huge array of different species, or at least it used to have this huge array of fish. And some of them, maybe a lot of them, have gone extinct. And to some extent that's been blamed on the introduction of the Nile perch into the lake here, which has eaten other fish and, according to some people, disrupted the ecosystem and totally changed the food chain. Well, certain people have really gotten upset over this issue, and there was a film, I believe it's called Darwin's Nightmare, and I think it was a documentary that was made, and some of it, I'm going to try to watch it. I haven't seen it yet. Just learned about it today, actually. At least one scene was shot over this Wallonie fish market, and I read that because of that, they don't want anyone filming over there. I'm not sure if that's the case. I was over there today, but it's closed. Today's a Sunday, and I didn't have an issue filming, but I didn't really get to see anything. Nonetheless, there are allegations that the introduction of the Nile fish into the ecosystem here completely disrupted things environmentally, and it harmed a lot more than just that, according to these allegations. So from what I read about this film, I believe they're saying that because there's this huge demand for this fish in Europe, that this fish was introduced here. It disrupted the ecosystem, harmed things economically, fueled some conflicts between local people and nations here, and it ended up in some scenario in which planes are flying the fish to Europe and then flying back with guns that are being used in the conflicts here. And I really don't know what truth there is to these allegations. I'm just learning about it today, for that matter. But I think it's very interesting to bring it up as I give you another glimpse of the Wallonie fish market, which is supposed to be the most prominent fish market around here. This also might be a little bit of a ferry terminal. Likewise, I forgot to mention that Mwanza is Tanzania's second largest port, and for that matter, it's the second largest city. It's got, I believe, between 2 and 3 million people, so at least for now, it's not all that much smaller than Dar, but it's going to be interesting to see how this factors into some of the things I've been talking about with regard to population and demographics and people moving to Dar es Salaam in the future, because if indeed the complaints and allegations are true that for whatever reason the fishing has really been disrupted here, then that would be harming the economy and possibly driving more immigration to Dar. I don't know, that's pure speculation, but I think it's something worth me looking into. And I believe that's a ferry. I just saw a ferry coming in, and I could tell it was a ferry because there was a bus on board and some other vehicles and other passengers. I wasn't expecting a ferry to dock right next to the fish market, but it just did. Maybe it's now taking off. I know that there's ferry traffic between at least a couple of the countries, but I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a ferry that goes from Mwanza to, say, Uganda. I think you might have to go from Mwanza to some other Tanzanian city on the lake and then to Uganda. I'm not sure. This is my first day at Lake Victoria, and oh, the sky is so beautiful, but you can't really tell. My first day at Lake Victoria, my first day seeing this beautiful sunset, and my first day learning a bit about a very economically important region of Africa. And as I was mentioning a minute ago or so, there are some conflicts around here, and I'm heading next to Rwanda. The only reason I'm really here is because I'm traveling out of Tanzania into Rwanda, and I'm passing through Mwanza and passing by Lake Victoria along the way. Well, I know that, for instance, with the Rwanda genocide in the 1990s, that created a refugee spillover into Tanzania, not exactly this Mwanza region, but over by the border, a place that I'll be going to in the next couple days. And there have been other conflicts between the local countries and peoples, and sometimes people within singular countries. So here's the first look that I've got at Lake Victoria. I mostly wanted to share that with you. I didn't want to get into some long diatribe, but I do think that this is a very significant part of both Tanzania and Africa. And because of that, I think it's worth delving a little bit into some of the economic and social implications of what goes on here at the lake, here in Tanzania and around the Lake Victoria region of Africa. So, asante sana for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the view of the lake and the sunset. And for now, goodbye from Mwanza and Lake Victoria. And why not leave you with one last view of the sunset with, I think it's a canoe, some small boat coming in, and the ferry heading out. The sun is down, but there's still some color left in the sky. Beautiful Lake Victoria.